Hello and welcome to the ASB Investment Podcast, the show that keeps you up to date on the markets and helps you make smart choices with your investments. These are entirely our own views and that of our guests. It's not investment advice, but we know plenty of experts at ASB that will be happy to chat if you need. Well, welcome everyone to the latest edition of the ASB Investment Podcast. I'm your host, Nigel Grant, back to help navigate you through the key issues, trends and opportunities right now for New Zealand businesses and investors. Astute listeners will recall we recorded an episode this time last year on the inaugural Mood of the CFO report, a newly launched deep dive into the minds of crucial leaders for any business and industry. And we had such a good discussion, we decided to chat through the 2025 edition again. So today we're diving into the latest findings shaping New Zealand through its finance leaders with two key guests. The first is Steve Cooper, CFO of Parkable and a key contributor to both the survey and the report. And then returning guest Lee Marshall, who's managing partner at Campbell, who oversaw the production of both, funnily enough, the 24 report and the 25 Mood of the CFO report. Welcome both. It's great to have you on the show. Lee, welcome back, and how are you firstly?
Thank you, mate. Thank you for having me back. I am great. I'm fresh back from a week coaching my son's football team at Ames Games, so I'm happy to be surrounded by adults once again.
I saw your post on LinkedIn, the mighty Liston College, was it?
That's exactly right, yeah, getting their highest ever finish. It was great.
Oh, where did they finish?
21st out of 64.
64 football teams?
Yeah.
Wow.
Chaos.
Does everyone go to Ames Games?
Everyone in years 8 and 9 or 7 and 8, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't know what. Maybe I just didn't make the grade. I never went to it. And Steve, first of all, great name. It's my brother's too. So congratulations on the name.
Thank
you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and then Parkable to kind of set the scene for listeners on who you are?
Yeah, sure. Great. And yeah, great to be here. I appreciate the invite to come along. Yeah, so who am I? I'm an accountant by trade, but I've been kind of a CFO for the last 15 or so years, working across a range of industries within companies of various sizes, from kind of tech startups to listed companies and kind of everything in between. So it's been a bit of fun. CFOs, as you know, have very broad remits. We cover all sorts of things with commercial insights and strategy and general finance, accounting, tax, all those wonderful things, reporting, budgeting, forecasting, capital planning. It just kind of goes lots and lots of things. So that's what I really enjoy about the role. There's the diversity, but most importantly, it's about being the co-pilot to the CEO is the way we tend to see ourselves, so that we work closely with the chief and try and turn that strategy into performance is one of the key metrics, I think. So,
right. And Parkable?
And Parkable, yeah, we're about making parking painless. That's kind of what we're trying to do. So it's a parking management software tool. Yeah. It's an app. Yeah. And it really means that we particularly work with workspaces or commercial office buildings. So one of our hotspots is really commercial office buildings with multi-tenants. So it enables you to share your park amongst your peers, your fellow tenants, the public, whatever you want to do. So you have a lot more variability as to how you can actually generate a commercial outcome from your parking space. But most importantly, it also creates a real amenity to your employees. So it's another good thing to have to offer your employees, because happy parkers are more productive and more relaxed when they get to work. So there's lots of good stuff happening there.
My wife, when we turn into a parking building, always goes, "Hello, Mary, full of grace. Help us find a parking space." Does it help with that?
It does, because you can future book.
So we have to pray before we go in.
That's it. You can save yourself the trouble. So it's a good thing.
Okay.
And we're global.
Okay, and I can use it as an individual. I have to. It's for a company.
You sure can. Yeah, you just download the app and off you go.
Okay, that sounds like it's my homework to do after that. and so Lee, back to you. Give us a brief overview of what motivated to recap the creation of the report. I guess it's survived year on year, so well done. And why the CFO kind of voice matters more than ever in today's business environment.
So a little bit about why we created the report and how it came about. I was having coffee a couple of years ago with a mentor, and we were talking about the Mood of the Boardroom report that the Herald publishes every year. Love that, by the way. And I said to him, somebody really needs to speak to CFOs to get their view. CFOs are pivotal big figures in business strategy and performance. They're people who consider economic and legislative factors on a daily basis. And in my view, there's really no one better to give a 360 view on how businesses are going and what we have ahead of us. And he said to me, stop being the person that says someone should do it, be the person that did it. So I set about...
It's a hell of a coffee.
It was a good coffee. It was a good coffee, a life-changing coffee. Yeah. So we set about creating the survey last year. It went really well. and we sort of carried the weight of expectation to come back and do it again this year, and delighted that we've had a big uplift in numbers. We had 173 people participate last year, 236 this year. We've grown our database to over 700 people, so it feels like it's a really valuable piece of information to get out to the market each year now.
Yeah, and Steve, you've helped produce or been involved with the report. Was there anything that stood out, or any surprises? That whether getting involved in the report or anything that's come out of it.
Yeah, I think one of the really interesting themes that came out was just that genuine two-speed economy. Roughly half the CFOs reported kind of meeting, exceeding performance targets, while the other half were facing either stagnation or decline. So in other words, we're kind of either going really well or really struggling. So it was interesting to kind of see that off the back of last year, which kind of had a lot of cautious optimism, I think was the phrase, and a lot of that resilience that had been built through all that economic turmoil kind of post-COVID. So I guess it's clear that there's still some uncertainty out there, but also great to see some strong recovery coming through and a little bit of kind of cautiously upbeat around future expectations, but also just always recognising that there's plenty of challenges ahead as well. So,
and Lee, to go on that point around the two-speed economy, I remember last year we talked about survive until 25, right? But it seems some got the message in looking at the report, but some might have missed that call, or potentially their business never got the call at all. So, by half of CFOs reporting, that they're meeting or exceeding expectations, while others are facing stagnation. What's driving that divide? Is there anything that particularly business confidence?
Yeah, look, I think as we came out of the 2024 survey, there was some optimism in the end. We spoke about that last year. I think when you look at the global economic uncertainty, geopolitical landscape, the wars in Ukraine, Middle East, Trump's tariffs, there's no surprise really that we're still finding it a very tough environment, and uncertainty, it comes right through the survey, right from this two-speed economy where you've got some people going really well, some people really struggling. It really looks through. But look, I think you have to take an optimistic view on things, and if we look at the positives, 30% of businesses that were surveyed achieved their targets from last year, and 20% exceeded them. So some businesses in Aotearoa are going really well, despite all of what we just discussed there. So it's really there are some positives in there, and on the whole, CFOs are looking slightly more positively looking forward as well.
And Steve, from your perspective, sitting in that exact chair, there's specific factors you see that are influencing either the optimistic side or the caution, whether that could be amongst your peers or even from your own seat for Parkable.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess starting with the optimism, there's a few things there. I think access to capital, that kind of came through quite strongly as well. So there's kind of access just to more funding options, and that can really gives you confidence about investment.
So things are opening up.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, yeah.
Seems to be plenty of kind of money out there.
Yeah.
Which is great. I think a real common theme was around digital transformation and innovation. That really optimism around the potential for the technology advancements that are moving so quickly, and particularly around driving efficiency, AI, automation. We're all hearing a lot about that, and there's a good reason for that. And that's kind of creating new revenue streams and just improving that competitiveness piece. And also maybe strong board relationships. There was a good theme coming through the survey. There's high engagement with boards, and management teams are feeling like they're actually being listened to, and there's a real value add coming from the board, which is great. So I think that's more common in the higher performing businesses, but I think that's good. I think on the caution side, a lot of that probably hasn't changed that much. Global economic slowdown, recession fears are still there, international headwinds are still there to be seen, and some potential for global recession. And that, ongoing trade tensions that Lee referenced, supply chain disruptions, all those kind of things are still flowing around, and that can really cast a shadow of caution, I guess, is the key point there. Inflationary pressures are still around as well. They haven't gone, rising inflation in some economies. Geopolitical instability, Lee also referenced that, that's for sure. We're kind of reading that in the paper, feels like most days. And I guess another key point, which we'll probably talk about more too, is that talent shortage and wage growth, and those two are kind of intrinsically linked, because as talent's harder to find, it also can become more expensive. So there's probably some of the few points there.
So Lee, do you think this two-speed trend is likely to persist again into next year, or are there indicators, is everyone going to be in the optimistic side sort of, further out? In other words, are we going to be talking about the stay in the mix until 26 situation now?
Are you curating another catchphrase?
Well, you can use it if you want. It's not as good, but
Trendsetter.
It's all I could come up with.
Look, what the survey tells us is that confidence begets confidence when we start to look forward. Okay. So the survey shows us that recent profitability and future performance expectation are really closely aligned. Okay. So essentially, in the 50% that have gone really well in the last year, they expect for the next year to go pretty well again, and vice versa. So if you had stagnation or decline in the last 12 months, you are less optimistic about moving forward. So there is a potential for this two-speed economy to continue to play out here. Across different industry splits, we saw some differences too. So those within the professional services sector were more optimistic. So they had 39% reasonably upbeat, 16% anticipating strong growth. So some positivity there. But with consumer, retail and health sectors, that was only 28% and 7% respectively. So slightly less confident across different industry sectors as we saw in the results.
I guess to the broader kind of landscape now, the report reveals both cautious optimism and uncertainty around the global economy. It says that about 92 or so % of CFOs expect ongoing macroeconomic challenges. I'm not sure what particularly is driving that or not. But Steve, how does that kind of uncertainty affect strategic planning when you're a CFO?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the key things there is it's becoming more dynamic and less linear, essentially. So I think one of the really key things for me is around that increased scenario planning and stress testing.
Okay.
So you don't just no longer kind of look at your base case and kind of tweak that around the edges. It's more about running those multiple scenarios, your high, medium, lows, your kind of real recessionary type situations as well, and really kind of understand the impact of that and what that looks like, and then really stress test those strategic plans that sit behind that and look at the impact on revenue, costs, cash flows, market share, all those key things. So I think that's a key one. One thing that never goes away is prioritising cash flow and liquidity. Cash is king, especially in uncertain times. So there's a heightened focus on maintaining strong liquidity and robust cash flow management and a strong balance sheet. And that can mean delaying non-essential capex. So you have to make some of those tougher calls and really focus on what's important. It may be related to that too. It's kind of that focusing on your core competencies and cost optimization. So you see many businesses really coming back to what's core and maybe selling off assets that don't fit and really focusing on what's core to your organisation. Probably around being more conservative around your investment decisions as well, because it's the natural inclination to be more cautious with the longer term, larger investments. So there's more rigorous ROI analysis and shorter payback periods, kind of some of your key metrics that change a wee bit in this kind of environment, as well as talent strategy and workforce planning. Again, that's always going to be key, attracting, retaining, upskilling the right talent and bringing them in at the right time.
And how often, I guess this is just kind of a question to either of you, whether the report's showing or you're in your own chair, how much more often are you doing that scenario testing now? Like versus, even roughly versus what you used to do? Like, is it waking up every morning and checking social media to see if we need to run them again?
Sometimes it feels like that, but it's definitely more frequently. It's no longer a set your budget and lock and leave and just get reported against it all year. You're constantly refreshing, and you're doing that with your board as well, just to kind of keep checking the landscape and seeing what's moving and picking up the so what's, what's moved and why, and is that important? Yeah,
maybe that's why. Maybe if you're doing that more, you're engaging more with the board, which is leading to maybe more healthy.
Exactly.
If I guess another thing a board's always mindful of is what's happening in policy, right? In terms of what's happening out there that we may have to deal with. Lee, I guess. The report says that policy reform still remains a clear friction point, right? With almost 80% or 80% of CFOs calling for changes around easing compliance and tax. Are there any top things that CFOs are focused on to help unlock that two-speed economy?
Yeah, this was one of the big headline findings in the survey for me, to have just over 79% of CFOs surveyed stating that they feel government policies need to change to accelerate progress. That's a really big number.
Yeah.
65% of them specifically pointed to tax policies needing to be improved. My concern from the outside looking in, I guess, is that businesses potentially are sitting on their hands waiting for these policies to change. And we know that policies take time. We've got a general election on the horizon next year. Are we likely to see big tax changes coming between now and then? Probably not. So I guess for me, my concern is that people are waiting for large changes to come through. They actually need to take accountability and really get on with it.
And I guess, I think we've had some tax changes, I think we've seen and stuff, but we're sort of always, to your point, like, do you sit back and wait or not? I guess from your own chair, Steve, does that kind of resonate with you in terms of, should you get on with things now, or are we waiting, too much?
Absolutely. And I think that the key point here is just to be proactive and not reactive, get ahead of the curve. Well-prepared CFOs, you've got to create some time to think through this stuff. And I think it's similar to the earlier response. It's also around scenario planning for some of those regulatory changes. So, similar to economic scenarios, you've got to run some policy scenarios. So what does that look like? Model some of the potential financial and operational impacts and what they could look like around those various things that could change. And really helps you understand the upsides and the downsides potentially, and also where there's areas of greater exposure or even greater opportunity. So I think that's pretty key. And also, looking internally to really strengthen your own internal capabilities and systems. So data infrastructure is really important. Ensuring that you've got, your systems are robust. But also one interesting point is around your capability of capturing and reporting new data, because sometimes that's an outcome, because you've got to make sure that you've got plenty of flexibility in your reporting systems to pick up things that the IRD, for example, may now require more detail on your customers, for example. Talent and expertise as well, making sure that you have that in-house to kind of get on with things and in-source when you need to, or outsource. And really look at your own kind of processes as well to get as sharp as you can.
Can I just add a point there, Nigel? So what was interesting for me in the survey was that 38% of the CFOs surveyed had worked with government to help remove some of these roadblocks. So
in the past year, or just in
general? Yeah. I look at that number and think, well, what if that grew? What if we had more businesses taking on more work with the government and working together with them to help move these things along? So as well as getting on with things within your own business and not waiting for the policy changes to happen, if we actually increase the number of businesses working with government to help find the solutions, we may actually get some of this growth retained.
To your point, like that coffee, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Don't wait for someone else to do it.
Yeah.
Get on and do it.
Absolutely.
Steve, you mentioned data and getting kind of, even if you might be waiting for legislative or policy changes, but there's some certain things you can do. Data governance and the importance of that. One of the standout themes of every podcast discussion, it seems, is kind of technology and the rise of artificial intelligence and what we're doing. I guess, Lee, back to you. Only 16% of CFOs in the report, report meaningful AI impact in their business today, but maybe 2/3 expect it to shape their team in coming years. What are the most valuable applications CFOs have been surveyed are talking about? And are there any challenges, and Steve, if you want to add into this from your perspective after Lee, what challenges are they facing?
Yeah, this was really interesting. There was part of me that looked at it and said 65% of CFOs are expecting AI to have a significant impact on team size and structure in the next 1 to 2 years.
1 to 2 years.
So it suggests that we could be on the cusp of mainstream AI adoption. So that's a big number. It also makes me think maybe the other third needs to wake up and smell the coffee a little bit.
Yeah.
But last year when we did the survey, automation was almost the key AI tool that was being used. Automation is now down 4th on the list for this year moving forward. So what we're seeing AI used for now is to support data-driven decision making, to help with sales and revenue growth. And so that's a big shift in terms of what we are actually using AI for. We know in the accounting space that automation of basic tasks like transactional accounting has already happened. So it's actually quite exciting to see AI coming in and having a bigger impact on things like crucial decision making, driving sales growth, and some of the marketing activities as well.
Is that how you see it in terms of it is making your job easier and or informing the decisions you make?
I think it is. And I think, AI can often just be about really smart automation. And, you touched on it, those repetitive tasks that you just free up your time to focus on more value add, more insight. So I think certainly in finance, not so long ago, even myself, AI felt like it was something for the software engineers or the techie guys or the IT team.
Yeah.
But it's becoming really apparent more and more so that every part of the business, every function in your business is just got so much capability there with AI. So it's a case of giving it a crack and getting into it.
But to that point, like building on what you said earlier, can you make changes and improvements with AI if you're sitting on old, worn-out tech?
That's a really interesting question too.
Yeah.
And I think it almost comes back to the allure of the transformative AI piece versus the kind of foundational needs of your robust kind of ERP system. So I think that's always going to be a bit of a trade-off.
And what's an ERP system?
Basically, it's your enterprise resource planning system.
Right,
so it's your accounting systems and all your things all joined together. It pretty much touches on most parts of the business.
Right.
And I think AI isn't a standalone technology, but it does really rely on good data and modern infrastructure. So there is a requirement there, but it's kind of finding that balance and the trade-off.
I'll just jump in there. So the survey told us that 49% of our CFOs surveyed have implemented one of these new ERP systems within the last 5 years. 90% of them had major issues with implementation. So
that doesn't sound common, like a big tech implementation going off track,
going over time and over price was one of the issues. So one of the things that we're looking to do at Hunter Campbell off the back of this information is create a working group, because if 49% have implemented an ERP recently, we know that a percentage of the other 52 will, and we're trying to bring a working group together to help the people that have had the issues in the past support the people who are about to implement,
like a therapy group.
Absolutely. Okay. And it will probably require a bit of a couch session because of that. But this is part of what we're talking about with this survey is we have the information at our fingertips. We have the learnings. We just have to use them. We have to bring these people together. I actually think AI will have a significant impact on ERP implementations moving forward, because things can move quicker and cheaper than they ever have before. So it's actually quite an exciting time to look at it from a technology perspective in our industry.
And like another podcast, we talked to sort of the likes of BlackRock and with these big AI themes and what it means for investments. But it's when you talk to I guess the likes of you both, you can see it at the coal face, for lack of a better term. Lee, are there any specific industries where I guess locally AI adoption is happening faster? And are they giving any lessons from what they're doing?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing for me was that the differences between industries here. So AI for cybersecurity and fraud detection is used by almost half of the industrial and primary companies, but consumer, retail and health companies are more likely to focus their AI tools on enabling better customer experience around their marketing and personalization. So I think the learning here can be that some sectors potentially need to look sideways at what other people are doing and think, well, actually, we are focusing on this area. It can also be used for something else. So there are some really good learnings to happen there.
It sounds like another therapy group. You're going to be facilitating all these different coffee groups in the morning.
And I think the predictive analytics piece is really interesting too, which I think is really applicable to particularly the finance guys.
Yeah,
looking at your forecasting and doing that in a smarter way, and being smart at how you actually work through the previous historical information and use that to inform
because presumably you could have that in real time as your brain thinks of questions to ask, as opposed to I'll get back to the end of the week.
Yep, we love Excel and we love a good spreadsheet party, but if you can speed that up by using AI, it's a huge win.
I'll see if Excel gets killed by this, because it survived everything else. So now onto talent and succession, I guess, I guess you work in recruitment.
Right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, gosh, it's just almost like this report is just built for your business. And I guess also highly, it's one of the most important things for CFO, I guess, for your planning purposes. But the report highlights what feels like every year ongoing talent pressure, significant issues around succession planning. And just it says 1 in 4 CFOs feel ready for leadership transitions. So, Steve, how's Parkable or peers that you're talking to, addressing this, and what do CFOs need to, keep top of mind for their talent?
Yeah, I think one of the first points here is that I think we have a responsibility as CFOs, in fact, just all senior leaders, to really take responsibility for that gap. Yeah. Don't wait for someone else to fix it.
Yeah.
Be really open-minded and forward-thinking how we look at that. Don't be too hungry to eat. We're always busy. We've got to kind of make time to fix these things and focus on these things. And don't be afraid to hire really smart people. Plug your weaknesses with their strengths, all those kind of things. So it's something that I think we need to really take responsibility for and really drive that through. But I think some of the things we're thinking about, right through the businesses, is that whole employee value proposition. Mm-hmm. It's more than just attractive salaries now. It's the whole focusing on work-life balance. You hear that a lot. Flexible working arrangements. Since COVID, that's a big thing. Strong company culture, of course, is super important. Clear career progression paths. All those kind of things, and their succession planning frameworks, actually getting ahead of that and identify those critical roles and assess your potential successes so that you're ready to move.
And that's broader than just your, it's not just your role. You're trying to find your successor. It's business wide.
Yep. It's leadership team, it's management team. It's kind of really identify those critical roles where you want great people to move into bigger things, but you don't want to be in a position where you don't want them to move because there's no one to sit in their roles. So I think that's important. And just, building those internal talent pipelines as well, identifying your high potential employees and, get them some training, mentoring, leadership development, really focus on you internally as well.
I was at a leadership talk the other day that you hosted, Lee. Shout out to your hosting. But I thought one of the points that was raised there was really good about, you want, it seems counterintuitive, but you want employees who are maybe bored and that's not in a mean way. Like, I'm ready for another challenge to tell you. So
Step up. Yeah.
exactly right. So, in terms of the report, Lee, is anyone coming with any responses to it in terms of new approaches to help with succession planning, or to find these people who want the next step?
No. Well, I think this is the point that the report makes, which is a real concern for me. So, succession planning is now becoming quite a strategic blind spot for a lot of New Zealand businesses. So to have only 1 in 4 CFOs confident that succession planning is in place is a very low number. And that's especially relevant or prevalent, in the New Zealand sort of SME community.
So that's that's the actual planning process, let alone I've got someone in place who can take my role.
Yeah, and look, if I take a step back out of the survey just for a moment, and I think about some of the things that we saw coming through and some of the concerns that I've got, I think there's something of a divide in the accounting community. I read somewhere that the Big Four have shrunk their headcount over the past 18 months in New Zealand by about 500 people. We are already in a talent short market. So there are some big talent gaps coming at us. I guess my call out would be that we need the Big Four, the large corporates, the banks, and the industry bodies to work closer together to try and fix this problem. Because the other thing that came out of the report was that CFOs have a concerning dependency on Big Four training, and very little L&D opportunities exist outside of that. We run our Future CFO program, which has now been around for about 5 years, run to our 6th cohort. And this year we had over 70 applications for that program. Now, that's great for us, but it points to a real gap in the market around L&D support for the community.
And I guess, that's probably, it sounds like a really, really critical thing for, if I was on a board, I'd be, focused on. If we just quickly touch on, I guess that board point you said in the intro, Steve, what priorities, is it succession planning? Is it, anything else? What priorities would you emphasize for either your board, if you want to go that way, or just boards in general? What do you think are the key things, that they should have top of mind and that management's working with the board?
Yeah, so you just touched on it. The talent planning and that kind of cultural resilience piece is really important. Attracting, retaining, and developing the right people at the right time. I think that's really critical. I think that strategic agility piece as well, and that scenario planning comes through again. Really focus on navigating the ongoing economic volatility and the geopolitical shifts that keep happening, and just have to be prepared for all those various future states. So I think that's a key thing to kind of take your board on that journey with you. I think the technology-driven piece, looking at the transformation and the AI integration piece, I think that's something that all boards, I'm sure, are very alive to. Our board at Parkable is particularly strong in that area and very, very supportive. It's something that we're very, very focusing on. And just that whole customer-centric piece as well. Make sure you deeply understand your evolving customer needs, because they're changing all the time as well, and then innovate to meet them. I think that's probably a key point.
I guess if you're management and you are not working on your AI strategy, probably you're going to get asked at some point.
That's it.
By board. And Lee, any closing thoughts on how this crucial role in the businesses it runs, can best position either themselves, their teams, or their businesses for, the next, until, through to the time we do this in 12 months' time?
Yeah, look, I think if we take a little look at the headlines really and summarise, so there is still some uncertainty around, right? So we are not in a position where we've got some clear waters ahead, and so uncertainty remains. And what I would love is for the CFOs that read, or any business leader that reads the survey, would be to sort of take out the key headlines. And so, yes, there is a call for more policy change, but for me, you have to be proactive and don't wait for the government to act. So you need to take responsibility for moving your business forward without it. Clearly, we are potentially on the cusp of widespread AI adoption. If you haven't thought about what your team size and shape looks like once that comes into effect, then now is the time to start thinking about it. And then, obviously with the succession planning gap that we have seen come through pretty strongly, ask your businesses to support you with increased L&D budget, building internal talent pipelines, or maybe, very directly look for who is going to be your next CFO as part of that planning piece as well. So I think there are some very clear things that people can take away from the survey to do to prepare themselves for the 12 months ahead.
So that brings an end to the formalities. Thank you both. I think for, the report to me kind of paints a picture of a, CFO community navigating complexity. There's untold transformation is what's coming through loud and clear. Maybe don't wait for policy change, but get involved, is what you're saying, Lee. But also, I think the standout piece is kind of that this talent succession thing seems is a real issue. I guess who's replacing you, Steve, right? Like that's a key thing you want to know, even though you kind of don't want to, but you know what I mean? For those that are interested in the full report, Lee, where should they go? Is it huntercampbell.something, or can you give them, where would you suggest they go to find more?
Yes, our website is a great place to come, so huntercampbell.co.nz, or you can reach out to me directly, and I can be found on all platforms, but particularly LinkedIn.
Okay.
So look me up and hit me up, and I'll happily share the report with you.
Okay, TikTok?
Not quite.
Okay, all right, just the professional social media.
Yes.
And so for our final question now, one we ask everyone, Steve or Lee, whoever wants to go first, what's something you've been reading, listening to, or watching that you could recommend to our listeners? Who would like to go first?
You go, Coops.
I'll go first.
Sure.
I think besides obviously watching the Rugby Championship, what a test match.
Yes, it was.
EPL's kicking off again, US Open tennis, all those wonderful things. I've actually picked up a book that's been around a little while, probably 10 years, but it's a pretty good read, a pretty good, easy read. It's called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
Yes.
It's the kind of the memoir of the creator of Nike. Yeah. And it's a real story about the lessons of entrepreneurship and a story of, innovation, survival, resilience, and ultimately triumph. So it's a really good read.
Yeah. Is he still involved in Nike? Do you know?
I'm not sure. Maybe at a board level, perhaps more so than a operational.
I remember there's that. Well, I think photo of LeBron James's shot, I think, to all-time leading scorer, and everyone in the crowd is on their phone taking a photo of it, and there's one person who's not, and it's Phil Knight sitting courtside. Obviously, it's a pretty good seat, but just taking it in, and you sort of see that, living in the moment thing. Yeah. Lee, what's yours?
Well, as your listeners may be able to pick up, I am a proud Scouser, and I never forget my heritage. So, yes, the Premier League starting up, I'll be watching lots of football. With,
like a Liverpool fan, I understand.
Everton fan. Thank you, Nigel.
I knew
as
that.
we discussed previously.
We'll try and turn them, but
there's also a really cool program out called This City Is Ours, which is filmed in Liverpool and has lots of great Scouse actors.
Yes.
And there's also a really good actor called Stephen Graham who comes out of Liverpool, and I've just finished watching Adolescence, which was phenomenal. Oh. What am I reading? Yeah. That's a really easy answer. I've been reading the Mood of the CFO report.
It's obvious. I can tell. You eat your own cooking, for lack of a better term. My shout out is just the Seinfeld channel, which has started up on terrestrial television. As my friends hassle me, I live about 30 years behind when it comes to on-demand TV, but there's nothing better than just having something on in the background sometimes. And if it's not The Chase, Seinfeld 24/7. So I'm a big fan. So I'll do a shout out to the state broadcaster. Thanks again to you both. Lee and Steve, great insights, and I feel like the report's only just getting started in a way. So we look forward to having conversations in the future as well. And all the best for Parkable.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to you helping me not have to stay the prayer every time we go into the Newmarket car park. We look forward obviously to 26's report, and hopefully we're out of that two-speed economy as well.
Absolutely.
So hopefully we don't have to have that same conversation this time next year. Again, you can catch the full report by following Lee on TikTok, or aka LinkedIn, or his website, as he said. But until then, happy investing, and bye for now. Thanks for listening to the ASB Investment Podcast. If you have any thoughts on this episode, or if there's anything you'd like us to discuss on a future show, get in touch with us at podcasts@asb.co.nz.